5 tips for writing a short story that a magazine will want to publish. If, like me, the concept of writing a novel terrifies you, short stories are a great way to get into writing. A short story, by Wikipedia definition, is a self contained incident or a series of linked events with the intent of invoking a single effect or mood or vibe. Genres range from horror to science fiction. I started my reading journey by diving into Isaac Asimov's short stories, was deeply saddened by Guy de Maupassant, and always surprised at O. Henry's twists. There are disputes on what a short story should be. Should it be character driven or plot driven? Should it evoke emotion or leave you with a sense of closure? The answer, of course, is dependent on you. Writing is a truly creative activity, using the power of words to construct imaginary worlds or complex characters. But to successfully break the rules of writing short stories, you have to master them first, especially when you want to submit them to a magazine for publishing. In this video, we will be covering 5 brilliant tips to ensure that your short story does not go into the reject pile and leaves the publisher wanting more. Tip 1. Why do you want to write a short story? Begin by asking yourself what you want to write about. And I don't mean plot. Dig into the heart of what you're using your writing to uncover. Are you looking to crystallize loosely connected thoughts on social equality? Are you struggling to process a trauma in your life? Are you interested in the way social constructs crumble when people are pushed to their limits? Nerding at whatever elemental themes are driving you will allow you to create a more cohesive and powerful short story that resonates with readers. As an exercise, peel back the top layer. Pull out your 2 favorite short stories, one you've written and one you've read. Reread each and write a 1-sentence description of what literally happens in the stories and a 1-sentence description of what is being explored below the surface. Next, think about how these undertones manifest through plot. Where and how do they appear? Is it through mood, character description, or dialogue? Where are these elements subtle and where are they the most obvious? How we perceive stories is the first step to changing the way we write them. Tip 2. What should you write about? I'm sure you've heard the recommendation to write what you know. This doesn't mean that if you're a teacher, you should write a story about a teacher. To write what you know means to write about something that is emotionally true to you. Sometimes life puts us into some pretty wild situations and people have indirect ways of regaining their footing. It doesn't matter whether you're writing a story about astronauts, miners, teachers, or children. If you dig into how you process grief or stress, you'll create a fuller, truer, and more complex set of stories and characters. A quick exercise is to mine your emotional memory. Think about a time you've been wronged, embarrassed, or pressured. Write few sentences about how an individual event affected your friendships, performance at work, or attitude. Did you become short-tempered, passive-aggressive, forgetful, or disoriented? Maybe that could inform your plot setting or your character. Tip 3. Finding your authentic voice. As far as the subject goes, each story doesn't have to be unique. Some of the greatest short stories are about the same old topics of love, relationships, and loss. In fact, the topic about which you're writing is the least important part of creating a short story. Sounds crazy? It's not. Think about what you as a reader gain from a great book. What makes a story great is not the subject, but the voice, the details, the perspective, all of which are entirely unique to the writer and, if done well, translate to the reader. Take David Gates and David Sedaris as 2 examples. Both write stories that often deal with hardships and loss, but their deliveries create 2 entirely different moods in the reader, one dark and despondent, the other light and humorous. It doesn't matter which approach you choose as long as your readers can immediately identify with your characters. Tip 4. What does the story sound like? Aaron Sorkin, the brilliant writer of West Wing and The Social Network, is famous for always reading his dialogues loudly and frenetically pacing around his office to whip up the mood of the script to see if what he has written actually sounds like how characters talk. We suggest doing the same for your story. Read your story aloud and record it. In most writing, you are in a sense talking to the reader, so unnecessary verbose and labyrinthine turns of elaborate phrase like that one can come off as pretentious or try hard. Unless it fits the content of the story, keep the story well edited and with a clear goal or motive. An example being, if you ordered steak and a tiny slab of meat arrived with a generous garnishing of vegetables, no matter how well the vegetables were cooked, you ordered the dish for the steak, didn't you? In the same way, you want to hook the reader immediately into your story and the meat of the plot. Tip 5. Shoot your shot. This tip has nothing to do with the short story and everything to do with the magazine you want to publish it in. First, based on the genre of your short story, narrow down at least 10 magazines that accept that genre of fiction. Here are some examples. Next, when sending the short story, run a spell check and grammar check to make sure it has no errors. Send it to a couple of friends for review and make sure to send a brief cover letter with the following details: story name, genre, and word count, any writing credentials you may have. Your Tinder bio doesn't count. Some information about yourself, school, inspiration for the story, etc. And finally, a thank you note. And voila! You have done the hard work of writing your first short story and are 90% of the way to getting it published. The remaining 10% is in the hands of the editor who receives it and his or her mood on that day. Don't beat yourself up if you get rejected. After all, you just transitioned from an aspiring writer to a writer. Cheers and subscribe for more Reedsy content. We have a lot more where this came from.